Good Wednesday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. Very much looking forward to today's show. Today's show features an organization that's making a tremendously positive impact on Charlottesville, on Albemarle, and on Central Virginia. We will feature the team, or some of the team, behind the Sexual Assault Resource Agency today on the program. A lot to cover, and if you have props or comments or positive perspective that you'd like to offer our panel, please put it in the comments section on any of the social platforms you're watching upon. Send me a DM or text if you'd like to relay some good spirit as well. I already have a handful of positive praises that I'm going to relay to Renee, who's doing a heck of a job at SARA. Judah Wickhauer is our fabulous director. Judah, before we welcome the panel, we'll thank some of our partners that make the program possible. The network is powered by Ting Fiber Internet. It is truly crazy fast internet. They have fibered our building, the Macklin building here in downtown Charlottesville, and folks, it is just absolutely delightful. We'll thank Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine for being a part of the show, Skooma Boutique Dispensary on the Charlottesville Downtown Mall for being a part of the program, David T. and his team, Certificates of Analyses for anything in the store at Skooma. Just great to support local businesses and nonprofits on the network, and we're grateful for our partners for helping make that possible. J-Dubs, if you could, Judah Wickhauer, our director, go to the studio camera first, and then we'll get everybody on screen. Just a fabulous panel lined up. I'll introduce names, and then we'll get to know them personally. Renee Branson, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much. We're excited to be here.
It's great to have you. We also have Laurie Jean in the house. Hello, how are you?
Good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. And Jamar Henderson, the prevention specialist at SARA, has joined us kindly as well. Good afternoon to you, Jamar.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, sir. Thank you for
good.
joining us.
Good.
We will start with the executive director, the boss right here,
Okay.
Renee Branson. Before we talk shop, how about some personal introduction to you? What makes you tick, your passions, your hobbies, and your interests?
We're just diving right in there, right?
Let's go
What
right
makes
to
me
it.
Tick?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
You didn't know you were going to a
I know,
therapy
right?
session.
Exactly. I'm here for it, though. Passions and hobbies. I used to be a really avid runner. I'm trying to get back into it. So that's something I've been working on. I've been doing like the indoor cycling, which is now all the rage, not the big brand, right, of the indoor cycling, but been doing that. I've got 3 mostly grown kids that are my absolute passion, and a wonderful husband. I recently got married in the last year, so
Congratulations.
thanks. And I've been in Charlottesville for 11 years now, going on 12 years, so love it here.
Very nice. Newly married, 3 wonderful kids, prioritize exercise, you work very hard, you live in a fantastic community. What is it about Charlottesville you like?
Oh, there is so much that I like. Well, one thing that I love is that it feels like there's like 1 or 2 degrees of separation between so many of us.
Talking about that.
You know, it really is. And I think this is a great example of it, right? That Dave Norris and I have been great friends for years and kind of made this, helped to make this happen. And that's what I love about Charlottesville, that whether it's connecting with people personally or making the connections that help support the work, it's all part of that same network, which is really lovely. And it's a beautiful place to live. There's outdoors and hiking, and I was at the Melissa Etheridge concert last night, so always plenty of great things to do. So that's one of just a few reasons I love it here.
Great answer. Vanessa Parkhill, hello. Elizabeth Nisos, hello. TV stations watching the program as we speak. Laurie Jean,
Yeah.
how are
hey.
you?
I'm doing all right. I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you. And speaking of the degrees of separation, she walks into our studio and immediately knew our director, Judah Wickhauer. I mean, that was
true.
like, it's not 6 degrees of
And
Kevin
dog.
Bacon in Charlottesville, it's 2 degrees
2
here in
degrees.
CVille. All right, introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah. So I'm Laurie Jean. I've been in Charlottesville for 13 years plus undergrad.
Nice.
So I love this place. It's such a good place to be. I've been at SARA most of the time that I've been back here in adulthood, and it's just been a wonderful place to work. I love hiking. I love nature. My colleagues know because I was just collecting a whole bunch of autumn olive berries. I'm not going to give away my secrets of my favorite places to get them, but I made cookies and brought them to the office yesterday with autumn olive berries in them. And
So
I've
jealous.
I've been loving the fall foraging right now in Charlottesville. Is the best. So that's kind of what's been giving me life this weekend
I
and
love
this
it.
week.
I love your positive energy. It's palpable.
Oh, thanks.
I'm like, I want to be in this orbit here. It's fantastic.
You're welcome to be in it.
Jennifer Seidel is giving you props.
Jennifer Seidel, good to see you.
Seidel?
Or know that you're there. I don't see you, but I'm so glad you're here.
She's giving you props. Jamar's getting some props from, is it Shay Sedora?
Yes, Michelle.
She's giving you some props right now. All right, Jamar, the show is yours. What makes you tick? Introduce yourself to everybody.
All right, so my name is Jamar Henderson. I'm the newest prevention specialist with SARA. I'm born and raised in Charlottesville. I've been local. Most recently, I came from a background as a case manager at the Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail. I have history as a youth mentor for about 7 years with People Places. So I'm a football guy, so I love this time of year. Fall's coming around. And I guess just with all the summer projects and things going on, like I just like to relax as much as possible. It's always something to do around the house. So yeah, that's pretty much it with me.
I'm a football guy too. Tell me about football. Who are your teams? Did you play?
It's not looking too good right now. I'm a Giants fan.
Okay. Washington football team fan this past Thursday night?
It didn't go our way, but we'll get another chance later in the year. So
no doubt. All right, guys. So SARA's in the spotlight. We've known the brand. We've known the positive impact the organization has had in this community. The Sexual Assault Resource Agency. Renee, you're the executive director. The show is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, so SARA has been around for over 40 years, which I think a lot of people don't realize how long we've been around, which is fantastic. We started off as the Charlottesville Rape Crisis Center, and over the years have grown not just to provide advocacy and counseling services, but then grew to do a lot of prevention work as well, which really underscores our goal to eliminate sexual violence in this region. And so our kind of three core parts of our programming is our advocacy work. We meet survivors literally where they are from the time they either present at the ER or call our 24-hour/7 hotline or text. We've got a new text line. Our hotline can be reached over text because we know, especially with younger folks, they're more likely to text than pick up the phone. And so whatever
Not just
way.
younger folks.
Oh, exactly. Okay. Same. Yeah. Same. But that is a newer way that we're reaching out to folks as well, and that they can reach us. So we'll really meet them wherever they are, emotionally, physically, and walk with them through that journey of healing. Our advocates provide not only hospital, ER, medical advocacy, but legal advocacy as well. Not in that we're giving any kind of legal advice, but just being that comforting presence if they need to meet with law enforcement, if they need someone to be with them when they have court hearings, if they're going through the legal system. We'll just be that presence there with them as someone that they know is 100% in their corner. We also provide counseling services, long-term counseling services that are free to survivors and their friends and family for as long as they need. We know that healing from a trauma doesn't have a time frame, right? It can take, sometimes it can take years. It's really a lifelong process, and we'll be with them for as long as they need us to be with them. And if they are ready or need to kind of move beyond the services at SARA, we provide resources for other services as well.
Awesome.
And then certainly, last but not least, what we're going to talk a lot about today is our prevention work. And Laurie Jean, as she mentioned, and you mentioned, is our prevention director, and really working in different pockets of the community to help prevent sexual violence from taking place in the first place. That's the most important thing, right? That's where we want it. Our goal, I think we can all say, is to put ourselves out of business.
Amen. Let's give you some props for that. Kevin Anderson sharing the show, giving you some props right now. Guys, give the show a like and a share anywhere you're watching. Laurie Jean, you said 13 years in this community, including undergrad, and a lot of that time with SARA.
Yeah.
What attracted you to SARA?
I was actually an undergraduate student at UVA, and I was somewhere on the grounds, and I saw a brochure, and I think I was looking for somewhere to volunteer. So I actually started by volunteering on the hotline, and it's a pretty powerful thing to do. It was a pretty young age to start doing it at, but amazing training. We're actually doing a volunteer hotline training right now at SARA, so if you're interested, definitely reach out to us. It was just such a special space. I think this happens in some way, shape, or form every time there's a volunteer hotline training, but it almost becomes this kind of like supportive group space where we're learning about these really intense, personal, real-life things. We're learning how can we support other people, and it delves into all of our own experiences and how can we be healing while we're serving others, or healing so that we can serve others. And so that was just a really powerful place for me to start. So I went away briefly and was working with a human trafficking organization, but as soon as I knew there was a job opening back at SARA, I jumped on it because I really wanted to be back in this organization doing this work.
Fantastic,
So, yeah.
fantastic. Jamar, we'll get you in the mix. Allison Pernia, giving you some props on the show right now. This gentleman, day 3 in the job.
Yes, sir.
Day 3 in the job and doing a live talk show. So let's just give this guy some props for doing that right there.
Thank you.
What attracted you to this job and to the Sexual Assault Resource Agency?
So what attracted me is, I would say first and foremost, my personal background. Growing up with, my own ideas of what masculinity is, and, seeing the effects that it has on others, in the jail environment where I was working at, and also working with the kids that, at people places and stuff like that, and just like the, how it affects them, and mostly negatively, sometimes negatively, and just, doing a lot of self-reflection with myself and correcting some of my own negative behaviors. And, I'm just eager to work with others and help them to not also work on their negative thoughts or behaviors, but just to bring it to light with them as well. So,
Great answer. I want to follow up on that. Your views on masculinity.
Yes, sir.
Let's go down that road.
Okay.
How they started, how they've evolved and changed.
So I guess as a young age, you think of, I think as young boys, we think of our fathers first and foremost, like me being younger, I'm a big guy, I was never small, but, like looking at my dad and, emulating everything that he does, like me being small and saying, oh, this is what big people do, like these guys, they have big muscles, or, they may do something negative, I don't know, I guess like for some kids it may be something like, oh, like grown up smoke or stuff like that, things that aren't necessarily attributed to masculinity, so, or adulting in general, so.
Great answer. Asho Muhammad says, I see you, buddy, and it's giving you some props on the feed.
Hey, Asho.
So is Justin Lamb. Renee, we'll get you in the mix. Did you say 40 years for the organization?
Yeah, a little over 40 years.
I mean, that right there is an impressive feat by itself, especially since Charlottesville in this area is almost like the nonprofit capital of the East Coast.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is fighting for the same slice of fundraising pie and dollars from the jurisdiction. Can we talk a little bit, and you've highlighted this already, of the jurisdiction, or of the evolution of the brand. We can talk about the challenges with fundraising and how you've overcome it, and the engagement that you're looking to from the community for SARA.
Yeah, I think this is one of the. I try to like to think of it as a positive, right? That there are so many nonprofits, because it gives us such an opportunity to partner with other nonprofits, and we've got a lot of great partnerships that we work often with the She Shelter and the Women's Initiative and other organizations that we really, whether it's just making a referral to one of these places or join them in some of our grant efforts in the past. We've done kind of some joint ventures as far as that goes. But I think in terms of like you mentioned, fundraising, that's always a challenge. It's always the big priority for nonprofits. It's changing a bit for us, and maybe this is true for other nonprofits as well. But what I'm noticing is that we've often had a lot of reliance on federal and state grant funding. And that's fantastic. We still get a lot of funds from that. But the dynamics of that change, right? And so the more we can be diversified in our fundraising, the more stable we are. So just in the past several months, and some people might remember this on the news, from the news, we had VOCA funds, the Victims of Crime Act funds, started to dry up, which impacted us and our ability to gain funds. And that really underscored the need to reach out more to community members, to let people know that we're here and that we really need their support, not only in the funds maybe that they can provide, but their time and talents as well. So connecting with us, and whether it's volunteering, whether it's doing something like making a, sorry about that.
No problem, no problem at all. Absolutely.
Having something that is being able to gather and support some financially. And it doesn't take sometimes a lot, right? I know a lot of people say, you know what, I would love to give more, but I don't know that I necessarily have the funds because I think big donors, right? I don't have the deep pockets for that. But whatever you can give is something that allows us to keep our doors not only open, but providing all of our services free of charge. So I was talking earlier about how we have long-term counseling for as long as a survivor needs. That is 100% free to them. And the way that we can keep that free, the way that we can keep our prevention programs free, is to be able to have the funding, whether it's through private philanthropy or grants, to be able to do that. That's a huge priority for us.
So we got a lot of questions coming in here. I'm going to acknowledge some of these questions. First, I want to ask you guys a couple more myself before I get to the comments. Courtney Wells is loving what you're doing right now.
That's my wife.
She's loving it. I agree with your comment here, Courtney Wells. Kate Meyer giving you props. Kat Miller giving you some props. You got the CVille watching the show. Dean Stewart says this is a great conversation. So first, some questions from me. You guys talk about prevention.
Yeah.
Prevention, and you're the director of prevention, you're a prevention specialist. We want to prevent the assaults from happening. We understand the assaults may happen, and then you guys are a fantastic resource when they do. But if we can educate, if we can inform, and if we can make human connection prior to the assaults becoming a reality, perhaps we can minimize them in number.
Yeah.
How do we go about doing this?
Yeah. Well, we're really part of the field of public health, which we're all more familiar with now because of COVID, unfortunately.
It's true.
But so it's about just the same way that we would prevent ourselves from spreading that, right? There are things that we can do as a whole community to protect each other. When I wear a mask, it's not just to protect myself, it's to protect other people. So when we're thinking about prevention when it comes to sexual violence, it's similar in that it's not just on each individual to protect themselves, because we know that that doesn't work. Right? We've tried for 40 years. It doesn't work that way. So if we are looking out for each other, if bystanders intervene, if, just like Jamar was saying so perfectly, if we take leadership of the emotional health and well-being in our community, and we're looking out for each other, we're modeling for our kids what it looks like to have a healthy community, healthy relationships. We're changing our workplace policies so that we have protective measures against things like sexual harassment. We're joining things like the Restaurant Coalition, right? So for anyone who is involved in leadership in a restaurant, we have on October 4th, reach out to us, look at our website, look at Facebook. We have our Restaurant Coalition meeting happening. You can join that and be part of making this sort of mobilization movement in our restaurant community here in town to look at how do we prevent things happening in those communities as well. We specifically have a program called 10 Men that Jamar and I are going to be working pretty heavily on together that is new for here but has been happening in Rhode Island for about 10 years. And it's an opportunity for men who are leaders in our community in some way or who just are passionate about sexual violence prevention but maybe don't feel like they know what to do to really be involved, to come together as a group, and they're going to be building relationships with each other and supporting each other in all the different ways that they can be taking this idea of emotional health and well-being, just like Jamar was talking about, into their own spheres of influence. So there's lots of different ways that we're doing it. Also, coaches, we have a program called Coaching Boys into Men. If you lead a boys sports team in whether it's a community league or a school league, we have a whole bunch of training and resources that we can give you to have little conversations, intentional but short conversations with your teams that are about building those important relationship skills, communication skills, respectful behavior, as well as just, checking in with yourself and your friends and kind of coming from that healthy place. So it's all about how do we look out for each other? How do we build a community where people can be safe and be healthy and be well? And we know that we've seen in other communities that can decrease the numbers of sexual assault happening.
Amanda Litchfield
Oh, hi, Amanda.
is giving you a ton of props right now. I believe your uncle is watching in New York, Dean Stewart.
Yes.
He said he's very proud of his nephew. So we got a lot of questions coming in. All I want to get, I'm going to get Jamar in the mix.
Okay.
On this topic, what we're talking on prevention.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a heads up on the first question that's coming your way.
All right.
So the first question is from Kevin Higgins, and he says, what characteristics and behaviors should family and friends look for in a person involved with a loved one that could result in assault or worse? So that is something I'm going to throw to you after getting Jamar in the mix here. Prevention specialists.
Sure.
Preventing assaults before they happen. What is your path for success or your path for prevention? I know you're day 3 of the job here.
Yes, day 3 of the job.
But anywhere you want to go on this topic, sir.
I would say, well, my first step, being that it is day 3, just getting the background and the knowledge that I'm going to need, just the history. I would say sexual violence is not something that, is personal, but I've never experienced that myself, so I'm just trying to see what, those who have experienced, what information they have to offer and share with me is first and foremost. But I don't know if I have a direct answer for that, but I just plan to learn as much as I can and, go from there.
It's pretty powerful to listen to survivors' voices.
Absolutely.
That's a pretty good answer.
I think that's a
On
great
day
answer.
3.
I know.
That's where we start, right?
He's crushing. Listening to learn.
That's right.
Absolutely. Kevin Higgins' question for you, Renee. What characteristics and behaviors should family and friends look for in a person involved with a loved one that could result in assault or worse?
That's a great question. So I guess that the first thing I'm asking myself kind of more questions. I'd like to hear more about this if he can chime back in. But in terms of characteristics or things looking for, is this in terms of behaviors or things that they might see that someone might be engaging or at risk for engaging in inappropriate behavior or something that could lead to down the road sexual violence or some kind of gender violence or dating violence. So I guess I'm thinking, my question is around, is this for a potential, someone who's potentially expressing inappropriate behaviors or someone who might be at risk for being for experiencing sexual violence? But I think really the focus for us in terms of prevention is rests with those who are, is not the responsibility, I should say, of a victim or potential victim, right? So whether that's a man, woman, or child, certainly there are things, and I think for so long prevention was framed as what women or children or people can do to protect themselves to keep the bad thing from happening.
Well, here,
right?
this is a natural follow-up to you, and this has been asked by Grace. And she says, and I'm going to get to the question here, she says, please highlight literally exactly what you're just saying, that prevention is not what women are wearing or where women are walking or what they're doing at night. It is educating people against stopping assaults from happening initially. It is not tied to our outfits. So that's a good comment.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we need to be thinking of. Is so what are the things that underscore those that misinformation to begin with, right? That it's what a woman wears or where someone is. What's underneath that, right? And Laurie Jean and Jamar, Laurie Jean does a great job talking about that, right? Because it's her specialty.
Yeah. I mean, so we're in the middle of doing our team training right now, and it's so important to talk about. We're looking at the moment that someone decides to harm another person in this way. What is happening in their life before that moment? What's happening in their environment, in their community? And then for the majority of people who never choose to harm another person in this way, what's happening in their life, and how do we make that true for everyone, right? So that's why I'm talking about like emotional health. That's why I'm talking about shifting how we have conversations with our kids, shifting how we are in the workplace, how we are in our neighborhoods, right? We are creating the environment where someone either becomes an offender or doesn't, right? So it is looking at it totally from a new lens that our society has not always thought about looking at it from, and that's why there's been a lot of failure in the past, and we've seen some change when we're looking at, let's shift the community, let's shift the environment, and then we won't see as much harm. To answer the question about what might I be looking for if someone is potentially going to sexually assault somebody else, it's hard. There's no clear kind of like litmus test or obvious behaviors. There are a few things, though, that we know. There does tend to be a likelihood for someone being a little bit manipulative, right? It's not surprising. A lot of this is not surprising once you hear me say it, right? There's definitely a leaning towards disrespecting someone's boundaries. So if someone is setting smaller boundaries and those boundaries get disrespected, it's likely that consent is not going to matter to this person, right? They're not looking for consent. So that might be a red flag. Just slight inappropriate kind of overstepping is a huge, huge red flag. There are more, but those are some of the key things to look for. And to just be noting, like, what is the comfort level of the other person involved, and can I even just check in on them and say, hey, are you okay? So sometimes bystander intervention is as simple as that. You know, it might be like one girl going up to another girl and being like, hey, can you come with me to the bathroom? I have a question for you. You know, it might be something very simple. And maybe you're wrong, maybe nothing bad was happening, but if you're just sort of checking in and making sure you're doing your part, it's better than doing nothing and always wondering, right?
This is a good question from Grace. How has prevention changed or improved over the years?
So much in so many ways. So, I mean, one of the huge things is not focusing on potential victims, but instead focusing on potential causers of harm, and then even more focusing on the community at large that is shaping all of those people. Another huge piece that we're really trying to break down is this idea that this is a women's issue.
That question has come in. Can you highlight assault with men?
Well, and not just, it's not a women's issue, yes, because there are many, many male survivors, and we need to not discount them, and I think historically that has happened, and it's not okay. Yeah. Also, though, even if it was only happening to women, which is not, it's still not a women's issue because it's impacting everyone, and it's caused by our community. It's not caused by women, right? So if we're looking at prevention, we're looking at our community. We're not looking at women. We're not looking at men. What about non-binary people? What about, you know, there's a whole range of humanity, and it's just a really narrow lens to say this is about some particular special interest group. No, this is an issue that we've been facing at epidemic levels for generations, and we're trying to finally do something about it now, and we need to be really wise and not oversimplify it, right?
Good answers. Jamar, anytime you want to jump in here, throw out the perspective. Please don't wait for me to prompt. This question is an intriguing one. And Elizabeth Nisos, thank you for sharing the show. She says, great descriptions of things you at SARA are providing to the community towards prevention. Thank you. I will help spread the word. You have all the media outlets watching the program as we speak here. How about this question for you? And this is a challenging question. Okay?
I love
it. Is SARA doing anything with same-sex assaults?
Yeah.
And if so, are the tactics different with same-sex assaults versus opposite-sex assaults?
Yeah, that is a really great question. And I don't want to jump it because I may not be the only one being asked, but I can sort of start.
Yeah.
First of all, yes. So this is, again, that's
We should probably break that question down.
There's so many pieces to that, and it's so important.
Right.
And it's another group of survivors who has been made invisible, and it's really not okay. As long as we are imagining that an assault is a man assaulting a woman and that that's the only way it happens, we're missing so many people's true stories. And like Jamar was saying, of listening to survivors is a place to start. We have to listen to all survivors, right? So I think
the
that's
public perception is man on woman assault.
right, and that is the predominant thing that happens. And plenty of us who are LGBTQ are, have been assaulted in that form, but it doesn't mean that that's defines our lives completely, right? So I think that it's important that we have sort of a shift in how we think about these things. I will say so many survivors who identify as lesbian or gay or trans have come through our doors and have received services, and we intentionally make sure that we understand and listen to their individual life experience. We don't want to lump anyone into any sort of predetermined assumptions, right? So that's first and foremost. I think when it comes to prevention, one of the big things that we talk about is belonging and inclusion is one of the big things that as a community, if we can start getting that right more and more, and I know there's so many of us slowly working towards that systemically, if we can start getting that right, then that we know that is a protective factor, which means that we're going to see less sexual assault, right? It decreases shame and it increases worthiness. And if people feel less shame and less terror about exclusion, because exclusion, there are studies that show that the impact in the brain is very similar to lots of other types of pain, right? We can belittle and minimize the experience of being excluded, but it's actually incredibly real. It's in the brain, it's in our networks, and it's firing in there. So we need to shift that, and the less shame and exclusion that we have in our communities, the less we're going to see those types of behaviors of harm. That's kind of like a broad answer to like such an important question.
That's a great answer.
But I hope it's a start, and thank you for whoever asked.
More questions coming in, but please touch on that subject.
Yeah, Laurie Jean stated it beautifully. I think and this also is what Jamar was saying, is that when we lean into folks with curiosity first, with the idea of wanting them to feel that sense of belonging, then that leads the way. There are things that we like to say that we're experts in, but we're not experts on anyone's own personal life and experience. And so if we let them be the expert of their own lives first, and allowing them to tell us what they need in terms of support, in terms of care, in terms of their own healing journey, then that's what will lead us forward.
Anything you want to add? We can go.
I'm good to go.
Okay. I got another one coming in here. This is from someone recently sounds like assaulted on the show. Meg O'Mara, watching the program. Appreciate the vulnerability and the courage for this comment here, Meg. I honestly just escaped a horrible situation. What would you say your view is on dating someone that takes steroids?
I don't personally have expertise around steroids, but I just want to respond and thank you again for your vulnerability, and I'm glad that you're safe, and in whatever ways you're not still safe, please reach out, please connect, and you're not alone.
Yeah, I second that as well. I don't know that I have any other expertise with steroid use. We do know that it can increase testosterone. It can increase some issues of anger and rage, and so that can certainly exacerbate things, but it's not necessary. But it's not a cause, right, of violence. So again, reach out. We encourage you to, and we're here for you if you need some additional support.
Best ways for her to reach out?
You can reach out to us on our hotline. Our hotline is 434-977-7273. And that's a text line as well, so you can text as well.
Johnny Ornelas, I think we have lost morals and respect over the years. I know it's not the solution, but how have upbringings changed over the years, and how does it make it harder to solve these issues?
such a broad question too. It's hard for me because I'm very much on the health promotion side. So for me, what I've been seeing, I think, is almost the opposite. And of course, there are things that are getting worse, and there are things that are getting better at the same time. And so I think what I am encouraged by is that emotional health and well-being is so much of a focus right now for so many people, especially people who are working with youth. When I'm in the schools, and shout out to Charlottesville schools, we work with them a lot, they're amazing. They're doing so much work on being trauma-informed. They're doing so much work on in incorporating restorative practices into their daily existence. They're doing social emotional learning on a regular basis and finding the best practices. So I don't know, I think I'm seeing that change. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch as this next generation comes up who has had a lot more emotional literacy brought to them in their younger years. At the same time as, social media and all the disconnection and things that we talk about all the time, right? It's complicated. It's not just better or just worse, I guess. But I guess I'm looking for, what's going right and how can we expand that?
This is going to be a challenging question here. So this is the talk show here. When you air content that is positive content, but authentic and real content on every social media platform possible, you're going to get responses and questions. And you guys are getting that coming in. So this is from Leslie, and she says, social media is making all of us, at least me, feel objectified, whether it's through filters or the need to get likes or look pretty on my Instagram account or my Snapchat account. I constantly feel pressure to look prettier than the next girl, and that causes me to do things I not necessarily would do. Please bring this topic up to the panel.
Wow.
It's so real.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think what it does is it continues to try to put us in boxes, right? These really kind of narrowly defined boxes, whether that box is, here's what it means to be feminine, to be a woman. Here's what it means to be masculine. And there's only certain acceptable ways to express that. And when we're put in these small boxes, that keeps us from being authentic. It keeps us from being able to be open and vulnerable and experience belonging, like Laurie Jean was talking about, which is so important. It's fundamental to who we are as human beings. And absolutely, our social media, feeds into that. It's just like any other tool. It can be used it can be used in a positive way, or it can be used as a weapon. And so, being really mindful of that. I think the fact that that this person has that awareness of, okay, maybe this isn't good for me. This isn't right for me. How can I push out the edges a little bit of this box that I'm being forced into? And awareness of it is that first step. And having those conversations. And this kind of ties into maybe what was the question before about, our morals are shifting or changing, or they're not as good as they used to be.
From Johnny.
From Johnny, okay. I think one of the things that social media has unfortunately allowed us to do is to disconnect with people in real life. Sometimes in our family structures and in ways where we might not be having conversations that we could have. And so if it is in our own families and homes, whether it's with children or just between a couple, whatever your home and family looks like, is to have that conversation. To pull up something that's on Instagram and with 9 different filters and sparkles and new colored eyes, right? And to say, okay, maybe that's fun to look at. Maybe it's fun to play with. I turn myself into a puppy, and that's fun. But what is this? Let's talk about this. What does this say about the fact that my face isn't okay the way it is, and have those conversations?
Can I
Please.
give one last piece of advice?
Please.
Choose who you follow.
Yes.
I follow positive mental health stuff on Instagram as well as my friends, right? You can select, and that doesn't resolve the whole problem. But I'm also saying that because on Facebook you can follow the SARA Parent Council and get lots of great guidance, like what Renee was just sharing about, how to have those conversations or how to rethink. Why is this message coming into me? So we have lots of resources that we're always putting out. So follow us instead of whatever's making you feel crappy.
Well,
Yeah.
let's acknowledge folks watching. Quentin Beckham
Oh, hey,
is
Quinn.
watching. He says, "Oh my God, I love Laurie Jean. She is one of my favorite people in the world. I absolutely love her passion." That's the president of CAR who's watching the program. Jonas Smith, hello. Evan Hansen, hello. And welcome to the broadcast. More questions coming in for you guys. Are you okay in this question roundtable setting?
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin Higgins has got a follow-up. What is your sense of support from local authorities when sexual assaults are reported? And I'll add to that, Kevin. I think that's a hell of a question. So I'll repeat the question for you guys. What is your sense of support from local authorities when sexual assaults are reported? And if we could compare and contrast that to city, county, and the university. That's a deep question for you.
That's a deep question.
Yeah.
I will underscore that it's really important, right, that we have open lines of communication with our law enforcement, with our Commonwealth's attorneys. One of the ways that we go about doing that is we've got a group of all of those different agencies that we meet with on a semi-regular basis. With COVID, that has certainly kind of kept that from happening. But to have those conversations around what are the best practices around when we're working with survivors, how can law enforcement or the CA's office approach their work with a trauma-informed lens. And we've been really fortunate to have some great relationships and always looking for ways that we can provide more trainings for some of our agency partners and allied professionals on the best ways to do that, because it is so important, because the survivor comes first.
It's a tough follow-up question to this one. Okay, and this is folks that are asking. Marianne Kish, welcome to the show. Carrie Rock from Do Good CVille is watching.
Hey, Carrie.
Is there one police force that you're not as confident in when managing, handling, or responding to sexual assaults?
I would say that we have strong relationships with all of our law enforcement. We're always, just like for ourselves, we're always looking for our own growth potential. We're always looking for how we can do things better. So there's always ways that we can, again, become more trauma informed. But we work closely with all of those agencies, and so I wouldn't say that there was anyone that we would say we work more closely with or not. We work with all of them and work to meet the needs of the survivors with all of them.
Excellent. A pop culture follow-up and social media follow-up. This one right here is from, I'm going to mess up your last name, Caroline. Thank you for watching the program. I'll go Caroline instead of trying the last name. I apologize for that. Caroline has the question, pop culture, social media have put more pressure on our teens and daughters than ever before. Please bring this up with Laurie Jean and with Renee and with Jamar.
I think this is really
She's a mom.
dovetails, I think, with the conversations around social media, right? Those are sometimes, especially now, those are almost one and the same. I'm ages myself, but I think I almost said back in the day, when there was no social media, but now we see social media stars. I do, yeah. I rely on them for a lot of that knowledge, but a social media star and a pop star and a reality TV show, it's all the same. Or very similar, right? Lots of crossover. So again, having those conversations, and Laurie Jean, I know, can speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. And I think it's real. I think we need to call it out. I also think for our individual families and our individual lives, finding what can I do for the person that I'm concerned about? How can I be building that personal communication with my child so that they have a safe place to go to as they're grappling with this? Like, this is the world that they live in now, right? Like, it is the reality. And so I'm going to do another plug for the Parent Council because I really want, lean on the resources in the community that can support you. We're going to be having events coming, and there's so many resources on our Facebook page about this kind of thing because it is all about your relationship with your child and what you can, focus on what you can do and be really honest with them about, I understand the environment that you're living in, right? You can have that awareness and then focus on the piece that you can control, which we can't control what's happening with that high level of media and social media.
Yeah.
This one's heavy. This is a DM. She's asked that I do not use her name. Okay. Jerry, please don't use my name. I was raped 3 years ago, and it's still something I'm dealing with now. It's important to emphasize to everybody that's watching. It's important to emphasize to everybody that's watching that this doesn't just affect the person that has been assaulted. This is something that's impacted my entire family and my close-knit of friends. Sometimes I don't know if I can reconnect with them again. Please bring this up with everybody on the panel.
Oh, thank you for reaching out and sharing your experience. And you're absolutely right. It is something that not only impacts a survivor, someone who's experienced that violence in their lives, but everyone who has some connection to that person, to you. And so one of the things that we want to make sure that we do is that we provide services not only for survivors, but for family and friends of survivors, because it does have this ripple effect, not only on people's personal lives, but their relationships, their ability to work, their ability to feel safe and comfortable, often in their own homes, right? So there's oftentimes, it's hard to find a part of their life that's not impacted by it. And so that is really the reality of that.
And I just want to say to that person and to other survivors, you're not broken. I think something I'm hearing and what they're asking is, and I'm sorry if I heard it wrong, but I think what I heard was I'm having trouble connecting, right? And that's part of what they're feeling like is hurting their family. And I totally get that. And that's super normal. And it's a natural human response to horrible trauma. So just to say you're not broken, that's not going to be forever, and it's okay that that's a part of this process right now. It sucks. It's not okay that you have to go through that, but just to separate out that it's not that there's something wrong with you. You're having a natural reaction to an unnatural life experience that you shouldn't have had to have. And there are going to be people who stick it out with you, and they can handle it. You don't have to be afraid of hurting them.
Yeah.
Amy, can you talk about the guilt process and navigating guilt after assault?
Yeah. Again, this is it's a really common feeling that survivors will feel, that guilt or shame or what could I have done, or replaying that kind of even sometimes literal steps. And being able to, whether it's through a service like SARA or to a trusted friend, be able to speak to that emotional, even if it's not sharing the exact experience, but reaching out with some vulnerability. There's a quote that I love that talks about shame can only exist in a vacuum. Right? And so guilt and shame can survive best when it's not spoken about. Right? Now that doesn't mean you have to broadcast it to everyone. It doesn't mean that you need to tell your story in a book or but what it means is, can I find even just that one person who I can be vulnerable and authentic with and hear my experience, hear my story, and have them just be there in that moment, hold that space. And that is where shame then starts to slowly start to dissipate, that shame and guilt, because it can't tolerate being spoken about, right? That's when it kind of breaks away.
Want to add to that?
If you tell one person and they don't respond right, it's not you, it's them. Go find someone else. because there are going to be people who respond
Yeah.
in harmful ways.
Yeah.
Um,
I just wanted to say also, and this is kind of from the previous person who reached out, saying that it had been 3 years. Don't ever think it's too late to reach out and restart that healing journey. If you feel like you need some of that extra support, there's no. Sometimes we hear a lot of, well, I should be over it by now, or it was so long ago, and it's never too late.
So a couple more guys, and then we'll ask. We're going a little long. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you have questions, I'm going to try to get to as many of these as possible. But they have a text line. They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram. I would think the DMs are open. If you want some privacy and some anonymity, email. Maybe we'll get an email out for folks that may want to connect that way. This is from a dad. Please ask the panel the best advice for prevention as a father of 2 teenage girls.
That's a great question, and I know that Laura Jean, we'd love to hear
Join
about
the 10 men.
10 men, exactly.
Join the parent council. I mean that seriously and honestly. Please do join the 10 men. I think that is a space where you'll get support around that specifically. If for some reason you don't have time, or if that's not the best fit for you, I love that question. I love it so much. It's so important, and just the fact that you care and that you're paying attention. I mean, that's a huge protective factor for your children. Huge. It's really hard. I've thought a lot about this with children in my life that I really care about and teens that I really care about. I cannot prevent the kids and teens that I love from being assaulted. And that's hard to say as the director of prevention at SARA.
Honest.
I hate that reality. The best thing I can do is work on my community. And I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but I've really thought a lot about this for myself over the years, and that's the best thing I can do. If I can interact in my community and invest in my community in a way that it's more likely that when I'm not there with my child, someone else will be who will look out for them, then I'm doing the biggest thing. I will also say it is also important have really open, honest, listening heavy, where you're listening way more than you're talking, conversations with them about relationships, about love, about sexuality. Come to SARA if you need resources on that. I know every parent I talk to is like, what? But it's so important. It is so important. It's important that you have accurate information, or if you don't have accurate information, tell them that. I don't know. Let's go find out together, and we can point you to good, healthy, accurate resources. That is so important. Get comfortable talking about healthy sexuality and have those conversations with your kids in a non-shaming, non-objectifying, non-blaming, equity-focused way, right? And that's hard. That's a very tall order, and that's what we sign up for when we invest in kids in our lives or when we become a parent. That is what we sign up for. So yeah, reach out for more resources around that, but I do want to encourage that.
So we'll close with this, and Quentin always is very apropos with his words and putting the finishing touches on things, and we love you here, Quentin Beckham. I would hope that any of us who are not trained in this could practice the art of presence. Listen with compassion and try not to offer too much advice when we don't really know the answers. Just love them, support them, and let them be openly, safely, and completely. Be present. Help your loved one connect to someone who is trained, and then be present again at their pace and donate to SARA. So let's close this interview. You guys are fantastic. We planned 30 minutes. We've gone in an hour, which is a testament to you guys and the viewers and listeners who are offering authentic and real perspective and questions. How do we donate? How do we support? How do we get involved? How do we volunteer? How do we make SARA even stronger than it is?
I think definitely find us on our website, saracville.org, and in whatever way you can plug in, whether it is through donating, whether it is through volunteering. That is a great way, whether it's joining the parent council, joining 10 Men. That's the one-stop shop for doing that. So visit us. And absolutely, we have our emails on there as well. So if you want to reach out to one of us via email, you can do that. And we would love to hear from you. That's what we really want to do. Laurie Jean spoke beautifully about that need to build and invest in our community. And the best way we can do that is to have conversations with you. And so reach out.
Yeah. That was perfect. But yeah, please join us. We can add some links to the comments maybe later too, if that's too vague. But the website is perfect place to start. Yeah.
You guys are fantastic. This gentleman, his third day on the job, and gets into you did a heck of a job.
Virtual high fives.
Thank you.
Renee, fantastic. Laurie Jean, fantastic. Please support the organizations that are making the community just this awesome place to be in. And Sexual Assault Resource Agency certainly embodies that statement. I think you get an idea, J-Dubs, if you can go on a one-shot here before we close. I think you get an idea of what we're trying to do here with the network and the I Love CVille show. It is real talk, man. It is conversations that matter, conversations that may make you uncomfortable, but conversations that have the mission of making the community stronger and better. And it often starts with conversation and listening to learn. And as we have those conversations and listen to learn, then we can put a plan in place to have an impact positive on the community. That's the show. Please, if you're looking to volunteer, support Sexual Assault Resource Agency, consider them and prioritize them. Thank you for joining us on a Wednesday afternoon here in Charlottesville. My name is Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille show, where we feature the best of Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Take care. He's going to tell us.